banger, slammer, what else? Knockout, hot one. What else? Those are not all words that Bill Clinton used to describe his interns. I mean, let's face it, probably they are. But those are all words that I'm using to describe the show today. Those are all words that I'm using to describe what's going to be happening today on this particular program, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, because we're going to have an amazing show. First of all, Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports will be joining us. He's the head pollster, Honest Pollster is his Twitter handle, and he's at Rasmussen. We haven't spoken with him in a long time, but he's been busy. He's been out there. He's been polling, and he's got some surprising numbers for President Donald Trump. Some scary numbers for Republicans as we head into the midterm elections. And this is all based on what's been going on with the Epstein files, the Epstein saga, the Epstein drama. Jeffrey Epstein dead. The files locked up by the FBI. Nobody in the Biden administration would release them. Everybody refused to let the public see what they were. Donald Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. Kash Patel made a career, multiple millions of dollars was made by this guy going around the country talking on podcasts and writing books about the FBI and the corruption within and the Epstein files, and Dan Bongino on his podcast railing against the Epstein files, and Pam Bondi on multiple occasions telling us she's ready to release the Epstein files. They're on her desk, all that stuff. And now the Epstein files, we find out, according to President Donald Trump, are a hoax. They're all just a hoax. It's a hoax. They never existed, or they did exist, or it's all kind of a little confusing. I'm going to be honest with you. And I've been trying to make heads or tails of it, but all I can make of it is, well, just a big fat tail. President Donald Trump, however, is continuing to hammer home. He's doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on the idea that this is a hoax, and he's attacking anyone in his base who believes otherwise. If you're a Trump supporter, if you're a MAGA faithful, and you do not buy into the hoax idea, he's not a big fan of yours anymore, and he feels bad for you, and he doesn't want your support. He wrote on Truth Social, the radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again. Just like with the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, which the Dems swore had come from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom. And even the Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made up story used in order to hide crooked Hillary Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. They are no good at governing, no good at policy, and no good at picking winning candidates. Also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And my past supporters have bought into this wordy-dirt BS, hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. I have had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history, and all these people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success, because I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. That was President Donald Trump earlier today in a fiery but mostly peaceful Truth Social post. It's fiery but mostly peaceful. That Truth Social post, as CNN would say. And now you've got all these MAGA faithful, all these Donald Trump supporters, all these people who've spent the last few years trying to get Donald Trump elected and supporting him, and bringing the base all around. Now they're all scratching their heads going, wait, what do we do? We just want the Epstein files that we were promised. President Donald Trump hosted the Crown Prince of Bahrain, also Prime Minister. When you're the Crown Prince of Bahrain, I guess you can also make yourself the Prime Minister. I don't know how the politics works. But they were there in the Oval Office, and they were talking about, they were talking about the Crown Prince of Bahrain stuff and presidential stuff. And of course, whenever President Donald Trump is in the Oval Office, which, by the way, this is the best thing about President Donald Trump. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know. Whatever you think about the Epstein files, whatever side you're on with the Epstein hoax, whatever you think about whether or not the files should be released and who's to blame for it and if there's a cover up and put all that aside. Donald Trump never shirks from a question, and he always invites the press into his office no matter what. He would never say no press today. He would never say no questions today. He doesn't predetermine which reporters get the ability to ask him a question. He's not squashing the First Amendment. He believes that everybody should be able to ask whatever they want. And they did. And President Trump was ready with an answer when he was asked about the Epstein hoax and whether or not Pam Bondi was the one behind it all.
The big hoax. No, it's not the Attorney General. No, I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. You had Christopher Wray and these characters and Comey before him. And it's a bad group. It started, actually, look at the Steele dossier that turned out to be a total hoax. The 51 agents, the intelligence, so-called intelligence agents, it was a hoax. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats. And some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. And so they try and do the Democrats' work. The Democrats are good for nothing other than these hoaxes. They're bad for policy. They're bad for picking candidates that can get elected. Like in New York, we have a communist running. He may get elected too, actually, but he'll destroy the city. It's I call it the Epstein hoax. It takes a lot of time and effort. Instead of talking about the great achievements, we've had a great gentleman. Yesterday, as you know, went on CNBC and he made the statement that Trump may go down as the greatest president of all in the United States. And instead of talking about the things we've achieved, we've had tremendous achievement. They're wasting their time with a guy who obviously had some very serious problems, who died 3-4 years ago. I'd rather talk about the success we have with the economy, the best we've ever had, and all of the things we've done, including the Middle East. I mean, you see it. Instead, they want to talk about the Epstein hoax. And the sad part is it's people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people. Yeah, go ahead.
Stupid people. That's Donald Trump referring to his past supporters. Stupid people. I guess people like, I don't know, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, who is Charlie Kirk? I mean, who are the stupid people? If there's people out there who are like, I don't believe this. I don't believe this is a hoax. I don't believe this is a scam. I believe there's something to the Jeffrey Epstein files, which, by the way, is the majority of Republicans. And we're going to be chatting with Mark Mitchell, Rasmussen reporter extraordinaire, here in just a minute. He's got some polling numbers on this. He's got some polling numbers that don't bode well for President Donald Trump and his continued handling of the Epstein files, or what he now calls the Epstein hoax. But there's a long list, and I was at TPUSA. There were 7,000 people there who screamed and yelled and demanded that there be more information about Epstein released. Screamed and yelled and demanded that the truth be told. Screamed and yelled and demanded that there be justice, not just for the victims, but that all of those elites who visited the island and covered it up and were part of this blackmail scheme, all of those people be brought to justice. And we're talking big names too. Donald Trump called them stupid people today in the Oval Office. So rest assured, this will not end yet. I think that the harder Donald Trump pushes, the harder his Epstein-loving base is going to push back. He was asked again about it, and he reiterated the point that this was a hoax perpetrated by the Democrats, and anybody who buys into it is doing the Democrats' dirty work.
Asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more documents to finally put this controversy to rest.
Yeah, whatever's credible, she can release. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. But it's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone, and all it is the Republicans. Certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook, and no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes. They're started by the Democrats, and some Republicans. In this case, I was surprised, but they got duped.
Go
ahead.
President, first of all, you were under high-ranking officials, whether it's been your FBI director or Pam Bondi, they have made some inconsistent statements in the past.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak about him, but I can say that Pam Bondi, I really think that she's done very good. She says, I gave you all the credible information. And if she finds any more credible information, she'll give that too. What more can she do than that? I mean, honestly, what more can she do? And we do have bigger problems. You know, we have problems with millions of illegal people that came in here, and they're killers and murderers. We have 11,888 murderers that were allowed into our country by Biden, sleepy Joe Biden, stupid Joe Biden. He allowed them into our country. And you know what? We got to do something about it. She's got a lot of things she's working on. And, it's very sad that somebody can be waylaid, that just get waylaid. But I think she's doing a great job, personally. Go ahead.
In your Tuesday session this morning, you mentioned past supporters when you were talking about the Epstein issue. Does that mean that you're effectively disowning any supporters?
No, but I lost a lot of faith in certain people. Yeah, I lost because they got duped by the Democrats. The Democrats are good for nothing. They've done a terrible job. They almost destroyed our country. If I didn't get elected, all these numbers you're hearing about, they found $25 billion and another 25 is coming in and hundreds of billions of dollars is pouring into our country. And we just got the biggest tax cut in history. We just got the biggest regulation cuts in history. There'll be no tax on tips. There'll be no tax on Social Security. There'll be no tax on overtime. There'll be no tax on so many other things.
Yeah, and then he goes on and on and on that, which is great because he launches into a litany of all the important things and all the successes, and there have been so many of them. And that's why this is, I think, so frustrating to so many people, is because we wanted to talk about the successes. We wanted to talk about the one big beautiful bill. We wanted to talk about all of the economic stuff. But this memo, this poorly released memo last Sunday has sucked the air out of all his wins. And now it's all anyone keeps talking about. And instead of referencing it in a way that is palatable or, I guess you would say appropriate or satisfies the people that are most eagerly demanding it be satisfied, he keeps doubling down and pushing it off. So it's really interesting to see what happens. But again, President Donald Trump is in the infancy of his second term, and there are midterms next year, and all of this could have some kind of adverse effect on all of that. So with the latest in the numbers we have here, I'm going to bring in Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports. All right, he's here. Look, see, there's his name, Mark Mitchell, head pollster at Rasmussen Reports. Mark, hey, thanks for being here, man. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute since we spoke. And you were supposed to be at TPUSA, but last minute I know you had something that came up. But I'm glad we were able to connect this because this is an interesting week, isn't it, so far?
Yeah, Turning Point must have been lit. It was like the Epstein party down there.
It really was.
Is what it seemed to be. Yeah, pretty awkward optics when the administration is trying to turn a blind eye to this.
Yeah, I mean, we had 7,000 people screaming and yelling about this thing when Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk took the stage. It was wild to be there live for sure.
Yeah, I should have been there.
Yeah. Next time.
I got my tan up in the New Jersey shore, though. That's what I was doing.
I like that instead of coming to Florida, you go to New Jersey to get a tan, but I guess that's what people do sometimes. So
no, it's all right for 2 months a year,
So we had this whole big thing with President Donald Trump and the one big beautiful bill on July 4th, which was just 2 weeks ago. It seems like it was 2 months ago. And then 2 days later on Sunday, this memo comes out from the DOJ and the FBI with saying, hey, nothing to see here with the Epstein files.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, thanks for your time. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. So did President Donald Trump did he not get a one big beautiful bill bump? And what are the numbers telling you today as far as approval and stuff?
The one big beautiful bill, the problem is that people don't like Congress. People don't like the way that Congress allocates money. Yeah. People think it's their elected representatives and not themselves that are standing in the way of cuts. And so when you have a massive Washington, D.C. beast like this, it doesn't really matter whose party it is. I don't think the optics look good. Now, we polled on it. We tried to ask a whole bunch of different questions, and it was basically kind of indeterminate. People approved of it by 5 points net. Like, that's kind of okay. And the Republican number wasn't super swell. But then we also asked, does it cut enough or not enough or too much? And Republicans say not enough, like 4-1 margin. And so it just wasn't a winner. And I think everybody can tell that, because if you ask somebody like what's in it, you're going to get a really mixed, tepid, bizarre response. It's like something about taxes that might affect a few people. And that's great that we dodged a bullet, but you're not going to get credit for that. Trump's tax cuts being extended, people just aren't going to, that's not going to move the numbers. And then this came right after all of the stuff in the Middle East. And then any sort of legs that this might have had was just completely chopped off by Epstein, which is, the optics were horrible.
Yeah. So, and I forget, yeah, that's true, because you had Iran too, which was the Iran thing. I mean, that seemed overly popular with people, especially since it wasn't a prolonged war and there didn't seem to be any, there didn't seem massive casualties and no regime change or any of that stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been tracking that's really hard to specifically put a number on is how cynical people are with Washington, D.C. So we knew going into this election that only 30% trusted the federal government. Over half said that the FBI was Joe Biden's personal Gestapo.
Right.
Over 60% thought Biden was profiting from China. I could go on and on and on, right? And so when you look at Iran, I will say that the day that Israel started attacking Iran was Donald Trump's recent approval high point. He was at net +8. He's at net -4 right now. So it's been downhill since there.
That's a 12-point swing in like a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, that's net, but I mean, it's big. You know what I mean? He went from like 50 couple down to 48, 47, I think he's at yesterday. So that might have been part of it, but you look at the Iran situation, and it's like one of these things where, okay, Donald Trump has earned trust. His numbers are more stable.
Right.
People do expect chaos, but there was a lot of chaos and a lot of people freaking out about it. But he basically was a nimble navigator, did what you'd expect, and came out with the right solution. And getting rid of the Iranian nuclear program is really popular. I think it was 84% agreed that Iran should never have a nuke. And I think it was 57% approved of the U.S. strike on Iran. So those are positive, again, but he didn't get anything from it. He literally came out of July 4th, got blasted in the face with Pam Bondi's Epstein statements, and that's where we're at.
So when you say, for example, you said 84% of people thought that bombing Iran was a good thing and they should never have a nuclear weapon or anything like that. Is that all Americans, or is that one party over the other?
Well, I mean, it was pretty universal.
Okay.
On these, you can't get to 80 without a majority of Democrats. You just can't. And so a majority of Democrats supported it too. I think it was like high 60s or low 70s, but pretty bipartisan.
Wow. So really you're saying that would have been the high point, and then the one big beautiful bill could have brought it down, but then Epstein just destroyed it altogether. Do you have...
I mean, that's what it appears like, yeah.
Do you have individual polling on like Epstein and what people think? I mean, because I know, in our circle and the people that I hang out with and talk to every single day, it's a big deal. It's always been a big deal. And it doesn't have anything to do with the actual list, but the fact that, the elites are getting away with it again. Is there, an overwhelming sense by Americans that the Epstein files need to be released, and covering it up just shows more, deep state antics?
Yes. And so I'll rattle a whole bunch of them off.
Yeah.
But the challenge is always looking at Twitter and seeing the conversation.
Right.
And wondering if it's going to affect normies or not. Because back when everybody went down to the White House for the binders, there was a lot of conversation on Twitter and nobody cared. But now it's like it seems to be moving the numbers. I don't know how bad it's going to get. It might rebound today, but at the same time, this is horrifying. We've been asking about Epstein since 2019.
Right.
In 2020, like right after it, we had 52% saying that they thought he was murdered and only 21% believing suicide. So that's less than space aliens.
Yikes.
People don't think that that's but now this is just back. So this was 8th through the 10th of July, right after the Bondi statement. I think Cash had gotten his statements out about the video as well.
Right.
And it was basically, this was a response to case closed. 47% still say he was murdered, including half of Republicans, even though the Trump administration is saying no. 50% of Republicans, only 33% think he committed suicide. The FBI and the Federal Department of Justice have recently concluded an investigation that found that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide and that Epstein did not keep a client list. Do you believe the FBI and the Department of Justice are telling the truth? 21% yes, 56% no, only 27% of Republicans, only 15% of independents say yes. That's horrifying. That's like literally Trump's people who everybody supported. Kash Patel is telling everybody, no, he didn't keep a client list. There's nothing to see here. And only 27% of Republicans agree with them. So, and then which is close. We also did the case closed one. Only 16% think the case is closed. 68% think there are dozens of powerful and wealthy offenders who need to face justice.
That is all. So basically, because Donald Trump ran on the deep state, draining the swamp, all that kind of stuff. Kash Patel came in. He was going to close the Hoover building. He was going to turn it into a deep state museum, all that stuff. Dan Bongino went in there, and everyone was like, Dan Bongino is going to save the world. All that, we all know this stuff. So you're saying that after all that, President Donald Trump, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, all of the Republicans in the administration come forward and say, case closed, Epstein killed himself. And you're saying that the majority of Republicans are like, we don't believe you.
Yeah. And I don't know how big the impact's going to be, but what I can tell you is I don't think this is going away.
Yeah.
Because you look back in March again and you can say, oh, that was like a little weird, unforced error. And it probably says something bad about message discipline and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
But everybody still thought these investigations were going to happen. We were going to see something. And now instead, it's like, well, maybe this is a canary in the coal mine that maybe no, Pfizer executives aren't going to jail.
Yeah.
Or whatever, like every single one of these things. Maybe we're not going to get to the bottom of the AutoPen scandal. Maybe nobody's going to be held accountable. And again, I think Trump's numbers will recover. I think this will take away some political capital. But guess what drum the Democrats are going to be banging on between now and November 26th? They're going to be talking about Trump on the Epstein list the entire time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people probably don't believe that either, but it makes Republicans look really bad because they were trusted to put into power and clean all this stuff up. And then here's a very salient example of where they failed that is going to be rubbed in their face the entire time. Republicans need all the help they can get. Trump's not going on the ballot again, right?
Right.
Democrats are leading in the generic ballot right now. My assessment on it is unless something changes, and yes, there's positive economic news. Yes, Trump's getting wins. But unless America accepts that those outweigh the things like this that keep rubbing us in the face, Democrats are going to take the House and probably the Senate because they always do better at counting votes in the Senate races. So you think that is a problem.
Now, okay, wow. So the House of Representatives right now, with your polling and your information, you're saying 97% historically it's switched, so that's not surprising at all. But you're saying that the Democrats have the momentum now and they have the push to get the votes and to take the House of Representatives. The Senate is surprising. Where do you think the weaknesses in the Senate are? Because I thought for sure the Senate would hold.
I thought for sure that we would pick up 2 or 3 more Republican seats this fall, and we didn't, right? So I think that this comes down to there's only so much I can do with generic ballot polling, and it doesn't really represent what's going to happen in the Senate. I will poll on some Senate races. I don't know what any of the polling looks like. Haven't really even looked at the map yet. And yet, I can tell you that there have been elections over the last decade that really haven't matched the polling. 2018 was the standout. Mm-hmm. And so we can look at that and say, everybody talks about 2020. I can explain what happened more in 2020 than I can in 2018. And quite frankly, the national polling, Biden underperformed. So our polling said that Biden, on average, was going to be up 6 points in the national popular vote. He only got 4. But we all saw what happened in the swing states. That's the problem. But in 2020, there were a whole bunch of masked up normies watching TV, singing along Kumbaya songs on COVID. A lot of people voted, and yes, there was a lot of mail-in fraud. Yeah, I think there was mail-in fraud, quite frankly, on both sides. But yes, there was mail-in fraud. But in 2018, nobody talks about that. It was like a 3 sigma miss. It was like a 60% increase in off-cycle turnout, and it also happened to be the same election that Act Blue raised over $1 billion.
Right, an insane amount of money.
Brought in $1.6 billion or something like that in an off cycle.
Right.
And so the Democrats have a uncanny ability to get what they need, and we haven't seen if that's been stopped in any way. And they need this one because their national leadership is a joke. Problem is that you still have a ton of people who identify as Democrats and they haven't gone away.
Right.
They're just not super inspired by any leader right now. And that's because not everybody in the Democrat Party is a Marxist accelerationist. But they might people were convinced to vote Republican by the Biden administration. That pendulum might swing back, and we expect it to swing back, like you said, historically. And so for that to be avoided, and this is dangerous, right? Because we've seen they're willing to literally, violate the FISA process, spy on everybody, armed raids of political opponents, trying to throw people in jail. That's the party that's going to get the House and the Senate. And so what commissions are they going to put together? Are they going to put a super stacked Epstein commission together? Probably. Are they going to impeach Trump again? Almost certainly.
Yeah, day one that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I've asked multiple people. I'm not a DC creature.
Right.
I've gone there sometimes. I have some sources there. And everybody who I trust, and I've asked this, if this Democrat Party gets the Senate back, how long until they get rid of the 60-vote filibuster rule? And the answer is like, oh, crap. Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, is that you have Republicans doing the same old crap, putting out Washington, D.C. bills, and Donald Trump's trying. He's not perfect. This is a very good example. I think they could do better. But is Donald Trump kicking around at a 50% approval rating going into 2026 good enough to prevent what could be a very dangerous election where you have people stoking violent rhetoric, gaining control of the House with nothing to lose?
Right.
And it looks like that's what's going to happen unless something changes. And I can propose some ideas, but none of them are popular.
Yeah, I get it. That happens. So 2026, we've got, I mean, the midterm election is next, and it is going to decide whether or not Donald Trump really has 4 years to execute his agenda or just 2 years, because as you pointed out, any kind of movement by the Democrats in the House of Representatives is going to start with impeachment, and that locks up everybody. The entire administration is going to be subpoenaed. There's going to be all kinds of investigations. The news cycle will be stopped. And of course, they're not going to bring any of President Donald Trump's legislation to the floor, which is a big issue as well. What is it then moving into 2026 do you see, or what is the big concern? I mean, yes, there's some apathy because of all the winning. When your guy gets into the office and when you start winning right out of the gate and you're signing all these executive orders and you've got the House and the Senate and everything seems hunky-dory and it's the new golden age, people do get a little apathetic. What is the issue that you think is most important to MAGA voters or to Donald Trump's base going into 2026 that could rile them up? Or is the issue just not losing the House of Representatives to these whack jobs on the left?
Everybody says elections are about the economy.
Right.
And I don't think that that's exactly what 2024 was about. I think 2024 was a referendum on uniparty kleptocracy.
Okay.
So it's not just the economy, it's the death of the middle class, the squeezing of families, the inability to pay for things, and then the fact that all of the elitists are basically pissing on you and saying that it's raining. And so there was redress for the voters. They got Donald Trump. And so I don't know what's going to play out with Trump and how voters are going to attribute success or failure. And I'm not trying to take a cop-out, but we're in a very different media environment than we've been in for decades.
Yeah.
It's been less than a year. Elon Musk bought Twitter, I don't know, late 22 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been really less than a year before the left ceded Twitter. And so now Twitter is a marketplace, as close as you're going to get, a marketplace of free ideas and an independent flywheel of logic, essentially. That's what I think is really happening. And I don't think the media is effective at all anymore. They were just back in August. They did a pretty damn good job of convincing 20% of 18 to 29-year-old women that Kamala Harris was super cool. They did that with actors and actresses, and they did. I mean, I did the math. Actors, actresses, mainstream media, Instagram, whatever. I don't know if that still works for them. I don't know if they're going to be able to have that upper hand. And so it puts them in a dangerous situation. Now, I could tell you that also J.D. Vance isn't polling as well as Trump does yet. Maybe he'll grow into it. Maybe he won't. But assuming he does, their national picture is just a joke right now. Kamala Harris is still leading for the Democrat primary by far.
I was going to ask about that because I saw that a couple months ago. I saw you reporting that, and I was like, that's going to change. But you're telling me with AOC going on her oligarchy tour and with everybody else, that's riling, Gavin Newsom trying to get on starting a podcast and trying to get on television every single time he can. You're saying that Kamala Harris is still the number one choice for Democrats.
Yes. And you have to understand the Democrat mindset is not core Marxist. That's not who they are.
Right.
And that is who their most loudest voices are right now.
Yeah.
But I think the Democrat Party can be most approximated by calling them like the social cohesion party. The people who just don't want to be disagreeable. They want to be part of the pack.
Right.
And they love the idea that they agree with everybody else on stuff. I think that's your core Democrat voting bloc. And that's how $3.5 billion did help change people's minds about Kamala Harris, because she did like suck in the polling as a vice president. And all of a sudden, she's challenging Donald Trump. Right. And it's not like some artifact of the polling. Like literally people's just minds changed rapidly because they were told to like this woman. And so she had $3.5 billion of name recognition. If you look in the news, she is hiding from the spotlight. She has not been.
Right.
The one time I think she came out and gave a speech, everybody was laughing at her. It was brutal. But I think after the election, I think we polled Democrats on the primary and it was like 41% her. It's down to, I think, 33%. So she is losing, but she's still tripling Shapiro, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, all these people, Pete Buttigieg, none of them in a head-to-head against all these other people. Guy. Yeah. Well, depending on the poll, what happens is a lot of pollsters are shifting to online only,
right?
Which is like younger people doing like cell phone lock screen apps and stuff like that, taking polls for money.
Yeah.
And those overrepresent like the young gay vote, I think, is what's happening. So he looks, in some polls, he looks a lot better than he really is. Like he got 6 or 7%.
Yeah.
But like if she's the best they have and she's a loser and she won't do as good as she did before. So especially against JD Vance, who would eviscerate her in a debate,
of course,
and people would expect to see her get better. So again, their primary is probably going to look like an absolute debacle. And so I still think the fact that JD Vance is underperforming Trump should fix itself.
Is JD Vance the clear front runner? Because there's, Ron DeSantis popping back up and, Marco Rubio, I've heard people talk about. Is it JD Vance being the vice president? I mean, clearly he's next in line, but is he the front runner as of right now by a long shot?
I saw a poll that I think is decent, although maybe a few points left or leaning, coming out of an organization I trust, that I think had JD Vance losing to Kamala Harris by 4 or 5 points in a head-to-head, a 2028 hypothetical matchup. I still think it's a little too soon, and we haven't done ours yet.
Right.
But they did do Republican primary polling, which I think would be better. And I forget the exact numbers, but he did outperform Rubio, and I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
People like Rubio, and I agree that the things he's been saying are absolutely good, and I also think that he's probably one of the best people in Trump's administration. The problem is that a president now needs to be able to connect with people. Things like fluffy trust and feels like cares about people like me actually matter.
Right.
And he benefits from the fact that he's been connected to politics less. He benefits from the fact that he's younger, more vibrant, has a much more public family, can connect with people, is a lot more, I don't want to say articulate. Marco Rubio's very articulate, but he doesn't look like, to me, he's just connecting with people when he talks. He's just saying awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And that connects with people that believe him, but it doesn't connect with people who are just weather vanes.
Back to Trump then. So Donald Trump has, and again, this all, of course, I mean, a lot of what JD Vance faces in 2028 is dependent on what Donald Trump does until then. So back to Donald Trump. Is Epstein, I mean, again, this is all just conjecture. There's no polling on this, but yesterday he said on the tarmac kind of flippantly, I don't know why people will like this stuff. It's really boring stuff, which I don't think a lot of people would find it to be. But if they want it, just release it. Anything at all that's credible, just release it all. Do you think, because you said this isn't the end of it, if there is any kind of release of any information, or if this investigation goes on, or if Ghislaine Maxwell comes forward and testifies in the House of Representatives, which Mike Johnson said he'd be all about, is that something that would help Trump's polling?
I think Trump needs to address it to help him.
Okay.
But I don't think he has to. This will hang over him, and it will be a problem, but the vaccine situation did as well. And again, it's not apples to apples, but people were super upset that Donald Trump supported the vaccines when literally people are dropping dead on TV.
Yeah.
And my understanding from people I've talked to is that he literally didn't know, was kept out of the dark about potential safety issues, kept in the dark. And so people, I think, had the sneaking suspicion back when he was doing events and people were yelling at him for this, that he wasn't getting the right information. And to me, that this is kind of the same situation. And if, in my opinion, I don't think they should release anything. But my opinion also is that trust in all of these institutions has been absolutely corrupted. Again, just referring back to 53% thought that the FBI was Joe Biden's personal Gestapo. Right. Putting Kash Patel in charge of it doesn't change the fact that people think the FBI can be a Gestapo. That's the problem, okay? And so the idea when they say transparency is I go on Fox News a lot, and that's not good enough. It might be good enough to kick around and get a decent amount of stuff done and then maybe have a really tight election with J.D. Vance. But if they want this to be the golden age, like they said they were going to give Americans, why haven't we heard how many people have been fired, like who and why? Or what investigations are currently going on? There's probably a list of like 10 super important investigations that the FBI should have started because it was too busy investigating soccer moms, right? And so how has it changed? Is it? And if they want to get this Epstein stuff to go away, what they should be saying is we're opening a massive criminal investigation. The list, in my opinion, is all fake canard, and people are through with the BS. This idea of two-tier justice is like one of the most unpopular things. We ask people how important is it that public officials are held to the same standard of accountability as other citizens, and it's 94%.
Wow, really?
So, yeah, you can't get to 100% in polling. 94% is about as close. 82% very important. I can't think of another poll that we've ever asked, except 90% think it's very important to prevent cheating in elections. So those are like the two. Again, people say that election's about the economy, and it was. But when 90% of people are saying it's very important to prevent cheating on elections, and 66% thought this election's outcome was going to be affected by cheating, you can't just say, well, the government's good now because we're in charge. It's like, where is the brutal accountability? And so I don't want to see a list. I don't think they should release child like porn videos. What they want is the FBI to roll these people up because they have a double tier justice. So that's what I think they should and could do.
So you're saying it's not necessarily, let me see the list of names, let me see what the evidence is there. It's let's put some people away. And once we start putting people away for these crimes, that's when people's, I guess you would say reassurance in the FBI and other organizations comes back. And that raises everybody in the administration. That's a great point. Mark, I know you got to.
That's my hypothesis. Because you're telling like people are literally out there saying, "Oh, it happened so long ago." Well, you're talking America to America.
Yeah,
they watch cold case files on ABC.
Right.
You can't blow smoke up there, but you know what I mean. It's like. Stop with the fake logic.
I mean, we still want Hillary Clinton locked up. There's a whole bunch of people. There's no statute of limitation on, using your power and abusing your power and potentially, harming people irreparably. I mean, that's something we all want. And again, the sooner you bring those people to justice, the sooner you keep other people from trying it again in the future.
Yeah.
But listen, before we wrap it up.
Let's not forget that the FBI colluded with the Hillary Clinton campaign in Crossfire Hurricane, which is great that we're doing that. But before that, they interfered with the election with the whole email case. So that's the same FBI that exists now. You can't just say, well, we fired Comey and we fixed it. No, that's not how it works.
Do you have any information before we wrap up here about the auto pen, which you mentioned earlier, and about, for example, Dr. Fauci? And Rand Paul is now he sent a letter back to the Department of Justice, saying, hey, we need to really investigate Dr. Fauci because these pardons may or may not be legit with the auto pen. What are Americans thinking on the J6 committee and Dr. Fauci and all these other people that Joe Biden let off the hook supposedly?
Yeah, we pulled on the Fauci pardon. We pulled on the auto pen pardon. These are things that I would put in the category of half the country likes it, but it is base red meat. And it also would improve trust in the government. So, why not just do it? And, of course, D.C. will say, oh, we can't do it. It's going to be dangerous. And it's like, well, yeah, D.C., it's dangerous for the establishment because what happened here with the auto pen is just a bunch of schmucks in the White House thought they could do whatever they want. So these people need to be strung up. But do you agree or disagree with Trump nullifying Biden's pardons? And it was 49% agree and 40% disagreed. So that's +9. Let's do it. Republicans at 76% of them to only 17%. And then how likely is it that when Joe Biden was president, members of his White House staff used the autopen to sign documents without his knowledge or approval? It's like people are like, oh, yeah, sure. Like 54%. Of course. Of course it happened. So here's the thing. Like, these are popular. Are they as popular as mass deportations? No. But it's the right thing to do for the government. And this stuff will add up. And we talked about, okay, well, how could the Republicans do better in 26 than has historically been the case? And unfortunately, there are no easy answers. You have to up the level of capability. And what we have now is less legislation out of any Congress than we've had in however long. It's horrifying, right? What do we have? 4 bills? They almost have more impeachment resolutions so far this year than we have signed Republican bills in, like, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And so my call for them would be, let's just get a new announcement a week of every investigation. Let's just one a week all the way to 26 and see what happens. And then how about let's just buck up and say, you know what? Maybe we don't need these stupid rules. Maybe the parliamentarians should pound sand. Maybe we shouldn't have power brokers in the Republican Party who pull the strings behind the scenes to keep this filibuster rule in place so that there can be more horse trading and we can get more pork in bills. Let's just, pull the ripcord, get rid of that thing, and put out 1-page bills every couple days from now to 26. Things that I can tell you I'll pull on them, and they're super popular. How about paper ballots? How about voter ID? How about E-Verify, which we already have? We can mandate and put it in law free. Let's slap a 50% tax on remittances. Boom, 1-page law. Get it signed. If Republicans started pumping out a pipeline of this stuff, which is MAGA agenda, the most popular agenda I think we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, they're failing at a layup. Like, just do it. They need the Shia LaBeouf meme. They'll just do it.
I love that you're like not only the most accurate pollster in the world, but well versed on internet memeology. It makes it much easier to understand and speak with you. Is term limits still popular? I mean, that's got to be a #1 issue as people look forward still too, right?
You know what? To me, term limits is like something we pulled a lot back on before the political world like blew up in a conflagration.
Yeah.
I mean, I can scan, but I think it's probably been privately. In my opinion, though, term limits aren't the way to fix this. Yeah. In my opinion, what happens is term limits take, like, what's going to happen is the good people will just get termed out and the bad people will figure out how to set up political dynasties. And at the end of the day, you're just shifting more power to the lobbyists. That's probably what's really happening with term limits. I really don't think there's any way out of this without brutal accountability. A lot of people need to go to prison.
All right. Well, we'll keep checking that out. Mark, thanks. Listen, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. It is Honest Pollster on X, or Rasmussen, RASAMUSSEN _poll. Follow both of those accounts on X. And as I guess you're just getting busier and busier and busier as close as we get to 2026, right?
Basically, I mean, listen, our polling's dialed in. All I do is media hits, like complaining about how bad Republicans are. It looks like what my next year and a half is going to be.
Hey, come back here and complain about Republicans anytime. It's our favorite hobby.
Yeah. You can't complain about them enough.
That was awesome. That's a great last line. Can't complain about them enough. You can't complain about Republicans or Democrats enough. And I got to be honest with you, that's really, again, why, that's one of the main reasons why I'm running for Congress in 2026, because the Republican we currently have in office is not a Republican. He's more a Democrat than a Republican. He votes with the Democrats more than he does the Republicans. He's been horrible on conservative issues, and he's got an even more liberal voting record than Liz Cheney. And we all know about Liz Cheney. And there was an article that popped up yesterday from a newspaper. I pinned it on my X account here. There was an article that popped up in I guess not a newspaper. It's an online Florida political something or other. And I'm going to share it here. It says, look, Florida politics. John Rutherford holds 50-1 cash on hand edge over Mark Kaye in CD5 race. And that is unfortunately 100% true. That's not fake news. For every $1 we've raised, he's raised 50. Why? Well, because he's bought and paid for by the establishment. He's bought and paid for by special interest groups. You can see his donors include Bay Systems, Chevron, CSX, JetBlue, Lockheed Martin, Publix, TECO. All of them. I mean, they're all in the bag for John Rutherford, and he's able to make promises or, continue with the status quo and get $50 for every dollar that we're able to raise. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think $1 for every $50 of his when he's an incumbent 10-year conservative is not bad. I mean, we need more, but it's not as bad as it could be. He could be at $100 for every dollar we raise. But the fact of the matter is, money wins elections. Unfortunately, votes win elections, and we have a huge grassroots effort. And everywhere I go, every time I go out, every time I go to a meeting, I meet great liberty loving, freedom defending patriots, not just here in Jacksonville, but all over. But here in the Florida, in the 5th District of Florida, we've got a whole bunch of liberty-loving, freedom-defending patriots who are truly MAGA, who truly want to put America first, who don't want somebody representing them who's going to vote to send money to Ukraine 7 times. They don't want somebody representing them who's going to vote to fund the FBI. They don't want somebody who's going to go to Washington, D.C., quote unquote, represent them and vote to hire 87,000 new IRS agents. All of these things, conservative Republican John Rutherford has done. So if you get a minute, go to our website. There's a link in the description of this video. You can go to markkforcongress.com, or you can go to the link in the description of this video. I think it's the hat link too in the video, and just donate. I mean, a lot of people, volunteering is fantastic, and we will need volunteers. I assure you. Rest assured, if you want to volunteer, if you want to help door knock or hand out signs or any of that stuff, your help is needed and appreciated. But you know what else we need? We need a lot of cash. We got to cut that 50 to 1 to 49 to 1, and then 48 to 1, and then 30 to 1, and then hopefully get to a place where we are competitive in this race from a cash advantage. Now, yes, will we make it up in social media exposure? Absolutely. Will we make it up in door knocking and grassroots campaigning? 100% we will. In fact, we have our first big event, our Retire Rutherford Rally, coming up August the 18th at Sneakers in Jacksonville Beach, and we'll get to all that here in just a minute. But once again, we do need your help to beat the establishment, because as you heard Mark Mitchell just told you, the Democrats are going to win the midterms. If we don't change, if things don't turn around, if this Epstein scandal doesn't go away, and if Republicans can't make some headway into issues that Republicans actually care about and are concerned with, the Democrats are going to win the House of Representatives. And if that happens, Donald Trump's term stops. It stops in 2027 and not in 2028. His last 2 years will be almost impossible for him to do anything, because he'll be embroiled with impeachment. I mean, think about this. If the Democrats win the House of Representatives in 2026, the first thing they're going to do is impeach President Donald Trump. That not only affects Donald Trump, but it affects whoever's next in line for the presidency. And if you love J.D. Vance, we all love J.D. Vance. Who doesn't love J.D. Vance? J.D. Vance, the way he sticks it to Gavin Newsom on Twitter, the way he runs with Marines like he's still enlisted, the way he just rips to shreds Tim Walz and anyone else he's up against on a debate stage. J.D. Vance is a solid American. He's well-liked, he's well-educated, he's well-spoken. His wife and family are the envy of everyone, and he has everything that it takes to be a future president. Marco Rubio, maybe you're a Marco fan. Maybe you still like Ron DeSantis. It doesn't matter. Everybody is going to be embroiled. Everybody's time is going to be eaten up, and everybody's going to be negatively affected in the Republican Party by an impeachment. There's going to be countless hearings that are going to take time away from legislation. There's going to be countless investigations. Everybody in the White House is going to be subpoenaed. Donald Trump will be subpoenaed. Caroline Leavitt will be subpoenaed. Who else? Kash Patel will be subpoenaed. They're all going to be up on Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino. You're going to see all of them on C-SPAN every single day, and not a lick of work is going to get done. Stephen Miller, 100%. Tom Homan. They're going to shut down. They're going to try to defund ICE. They're going to try to defund the Border Patrol. They're going to try to force mandates that ICE agents not be able to protect themselves with masks or by not wearing insignia so that they don't get doxxed and their families don't get put in danger. All of that happens if we lose the midterms, which means if we lose the midterms, we need fighters, not old dudes with mustaches who, don't really do anything at all and are just trying to, get a nice pension so they can retire early and live the lap of luxury on the ocean somewhere. That's what we have with John Rutherford. That's why we need your cash donations so that we can try to beat him. There's speaking of Democrats and speaking of the Hill and speaking of people who are under investigation, Anthony Bernal, who is who was the chief of staff for Jill Biden. He was the next one up. He was the next man up, and he was brought in to James Comer's committee, and he was asked to testify in the investigation into whether or not Joe Biden was mentally and physically capable to be president. Was Joe Biden in charge of the country? Was Joe Biden just dishing out orders to somebody who took the auto pen and did his bidding? Who was really in charge? You may remember that last week we saw the doctor and he pled the Fifth Amendment. Well, guess what? Anthony Bernal, who was, again, chief of staff for Jill Biden and a prominent figure in the White House, he came in today, and guess what he did? He followed suit.
Bernal, when did you realize Joe Biden was on a cognitive decline?
Mr. Bernal, how do you feel about being here today?
Do you plan on pleading the Fifth?
Will you answer any questions today, or will you plead the Fifth? And can I get a reaction to the New York Times piece that your former President Biden gave the New York Times?
Yeah, no comment in the hallway. Guess what? There was no comment in the room either.
He took a similar tack that the doctor, the physician for Joe Biden, took last week. What was interesting about the testimony from last week is that we all thought it was confidential behind closed doors, but in the evening they released the videotape of him saying, on advice of my counsel, I'm not going to answer that question. So we'll see whether or not there's a video that's produced from this testimony that probably, I guess you could say, did not happen because he answered no questions. All right. That's from D.C.
That is not surprising. That's going to be the way that it goes. That's going to be par for the course. Anyone they bring in, it now that we've seen it twice, we know that they've set the precedent. There's now the first time is one time. The second time could be a coincidence. The third time is a pattern. But anyone else they bring in, we know that this is going to be the pattern. There's going to be a pattern of denial. There's going to be a pattern of ignoring questioning. And there's going to be a pattern of trying to pretend that there is not anything wrong with what's been going on. There's not anything wrong with Joe Biden, and that Joe Biden was fully capable of doing his job. Speaking of people incapable of doing their job, Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, that's the other person that Donald Trump's got in his, Donald Trump's, he's angry at a couple people today. He's angry at any MAGA influencer who continues to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, and he's mad at Jerome Powell for not lowering the interest rates and helping the economy get even bigger. He's like, look, we got this great economy. We got tax cuts. We passed the one big beautiful bill. We've got no tax on tips going. We got no tax on overtime. All of these great things. But what we don't have is lower interest rates that are going to help people. We don't have lower interest rates that are going to help people borrow money and get money and build businesses and invest in their businesses and buy houses and all those other things. People need money. They need access to money. They need access to cheap money. And Jerome Powell is standing in the way. So there's been a rumor that President Donald Trump has been drafting letters or talking to advisors or, investigating the legality and the ability he has to fire Jerome Powell so we could get somebody else in there and move on to something else. But so far, nothing has happened. He was, however, asked about it in the Oval Office. Here's what he said.
You have plans, or if you're back considering firing Jerome Powell, and what's your justification if you're thinking about this to do this?
Too late. He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. Europe has cut them 10 times in the short period of time, and we cut them none. The only time he cut them was just before the election to try and help Kamala or Biden, whoever the hell it was, because nobody really knew. Obviously, that didn't work, but he tried to cut them for the Democrats, Kamala. And how did that work out? You'll tell me. It didn't work out too well, did it? But I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money. And we fight through it. It's almost, the country's become so successful that it doesn't have a big impact, but it does hurt people wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him, but they did. So, no, we're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed, building a renovation, and they have a close to $900 million cost overrun. and it's a shame. But the biggest cost overrun is the cost overrun for interest rates, because we should be paying 3 points lower, and we would save $1 trillion a year in interest if that were the case. And all it is the stroke of a pen. And that goes for his board, too, because his board is not doing the job, because they should try and rein this guy in. So he's doing a lousy job, but no, I'm not talking about that. Fortunately, we get to make a change in the next, 8 months or so. And we'll pick somebody that's good, and we'll pick somebody. I just want a fair job. We want to see lower interest rates. Our country deserves it. We're making a lot of money. We're doing great as a country. We have no inflation, record stock market, record business, record everything. Everything's a record now. We had the worst inflation in history under Biden, and now we have almost no inflation. We've done a great job, and we should have the interest rates cut.
Yeah, so President Donald Trump saying, look, we did the work. We're at a position where we've done everything else. We have the economy under control. There's no inflation. We need these lower interest rates. We need the interest rates cut. And if we cut the interest rates, you know what's going to happen? Boom. Everybody's going to do better. Everybody's going to have more. Everybody's going to be rolling in it. Everybody's going to have free money. Everybody's going to be able to afford a home, because even though the economy is booming, and even though people are going to make more money, and even though there's all this great stuff on the horizon, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, we've gone, you know the thing. There's still this inability for the average person or the average young person to buy a home. And that is something that should not be. There should be no barrier of entry for home ownership in this day and age, especially with what President Donald Trump is accomplishing on the economy. But why is there? Why is it that there is still this big problem? Why is it that it's still unaffordable for so many people? And one of those reasons is, of course, the interest rate. And now President Donald Trump is calling on Jerome Powell to do something about it or get out. He's not firing him, but the threats to firing him have been sustained, and we'll see if that inspires him to change. Let's get to the Democrats real quick, because the Democrats, we know, are horrible people. We know they're awful people. Donald Trump knows they're horrible people. Adam Schiff is a horrible person. President Donald Trump was asked about Adam Schiff. As a matter of fact, yesterday he was getting on the plane to go to Pittsburgh for the big summit, and he just started rambling. He started going on about, Adam Schiff, that guy's the biggest lowlife.
I would love to see him brought to justice. I'll tell you what, I think Adam Schiff is one of the lowest of the low. I would love to see him brought to justice. He's a dishonest, crooked guy. I don't know about the individual charge, if that even happens. But Adam Schiff is a serious lowlife.
I don't know who's sniffling into the camera there, but he's like, yeah, Adam Schiff is under investigation now because he claimed that he had 2 permanent residences. He bought a house in California, claimed that it was his permanent residence, and then he went to Maryland and he bought a house in Maryland, and he claimed that in Maryland that was also his personal residence. And so when you buy a home and it's your personal residence, or your primary residence, as they call it, then you get a tax break, or you get a break on your loan. Your primary residence always gets you a better rate. So, but you can't have 2 primary residences. You can only have 1. And Adam Schiff has now been found to have declared, and it's something you declare, like you make the declaration, you sign the document, and you say, hey, guess what? You can't say this is your primary residence. In fact, here we have look at this. This is the affidavit on the tax property article to the annotated code of Maryland. The undersigned make this oath in due form of law and under the penalties of perjury, that the following is true to the best of our knowledge, that the mortgaged property is our principal residence. It says so right there. That the amount of unpaid principal on the original deed is being refinanced. It's like a $500,000 property. And here he is. And it's signed Adam Schiff and his wife, Eve. So he says this property in Maryland is our principal residence. Well, you can't have 2 principal residences. And he signed a similar affidavit in California. So what that tells you is, like I said, that Adam Schiff is basically lying. Adam Schiff committed fraud. And you can't do both things at once. President Donald Trump is going after him. As well he should. And it looks like he's going to be investigated now for these fraudulent. And again, this isn't his first rodeo. There's a lot of stuff that Adam Schiff has done in the past. You may remember how he lied under oath and how he lied on the committee to impeach President Donald Trump, and he got censured for it. Only in California can you be censured. Can you be censured and then get a promotion to senator? If you're a representative from California, from San Francisco, and you get censured for lying during an official hearing and trying to put in false statements into the public record of the House of Representatives, then usually you get, censured and thrown out. Not in California. They make you senator. They're like, you know what? We should send him there for 6 years. He's so corrupt. That's exactly where he is. This is Adam Swalwell. Speaking of California, the worst of the worst when it comes to any and all kind of public figures. This is Eric Swalwell attacking ICE agents in a hearing. Listen to this.
And these ICE agents running around our communities like masked bank robbers, terrorizing women. They're going to get themselves hurt, and I hope that doesn't happen. And we're already seeing women are being targeted by people who are impersonating ICE agents. I hope every state that is able to, and every community that is able to, unmasks ICE with their policies. If you're standing on the law, you can show your face. The FBI, they're probably doing a search and seizure right now at some dangerous criminal's home. They're not masked. They loudly, on their blue jackets, have that yellow insignia that says FBI. No other law enforcement agency in America runs around our communities masked. It's time that we unmask ICE.
And that is, again, that is something that the Democrats want. They want ICE unmasked. They want ICE officers to be harmed. Because, look, we know that Democrats love criminals. We know that they love criminal aliens. They love criminal, anyone who's really broken the law. Anyone who's anti-police. We know that Zoran Mamdani wants to defund the police in New York City if he becomes mayor. We know that for a long time they've been on the side of the criminals. BLM, that entire multi-million-dollar organization was created in memory of a criminal. And so the Democrats, all they want is for the criminals to win. And in order for the criminals to win, ICE has to lose. So if ICE agents are forced to be unmasked, if they're forced to show their faces, if they're forced to put their families' lives in jeopardy, they may step down. They may walk away. If you're married and you've got kids, and you know that just by going out and enforcing the law and doing your job and protecting your country, your kids could be put in danger, your wife's life could be put in jeopardy, you're probably going to put them above all and you're going to step away. Some people will. And that would be a disservice. And that, of course, is exactly what the Democrats want. They want the criminals to win. They always do. If they didn't, they'd say, look, you know what? Maybe the problem isn't that ICE is masking themselves or covering their faces. Maybe the problem is that ICE has to mask themselves and cover their faces. Maybe if they went after the people who were doxing and threatening and swatting ICE agents who didn't protect their identities, maybe if the Democrats spent as much time going after the actual criminals as opposed to the fake phony criminals, maybe if they went after the real threats to society and not the fake phony threats to society, maybe then ICE agents wouldn't have to wear masks. Maybe that's the solution. Keep them from being endangered by the lunatics who put you into office, and then we won't have to worry about passing legislation to take the masks off. It's really kind of weird how difficult it is for them to understand, but that's basically the long and the short of it. There's a lot more going on in the world. Earlier today in the 47 Daily Podcast, I covered a whole bunch of stuff. There was a deal with Indonesia. There was all the tech stuff coming out of Pittsburgh, which was huge. There was Vladimir Putin and the ultimatum that President Donald Trump has given to Vladimir Putin. So don't forget, if you haven't already, download the 47 Daily Podcast today and every day, because it's your first inkling of what's going on with President Donald Trump in the White House. Every morning, from the White House to my mouth to your ears for the next 4 years, that's what we cover in the 47 Daily Podcast. And you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Just search the47daily.com. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and don't forget to set the notifications. Don't forget to make sure that you're listening every single day. And before I forget, let me thank our very generous Rumble rancher, Amy BBB. Amy BBB dropped, or Triple B, I don't know if it's Amy Triple B, we'll call her, dropped a $20 Rumble rant and said on Epstein, tell me files are so corrupted that guilt and innocence can't be discerned. Don't say I'm ridiculous for not forgetting what you used to tell me. It's an interesting point and a very generous contribution to Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. We really appreciate that, Amy. We appreciate all of our Rumble ranters. We appreciate all of our super chatters. We appreciate everybody who's subscribed and who watches every single day. We are here every single day and bringing you the truth, bringing you the information that you need, letting you know who's trying to attack you, who's trying to tell you you're silly or stupid or lying, who is on your side and who isn't. We're going to give you the information you need to discern for yourself what's real and what's not, what's important to you and what's not, who's a threat and who isn't, and most importantly, how you and me and every single K-trade out there can fight so we can save the Republic. And also, don't forget, we would love your contribution of any kind. If you can donate $25, that's fantastic. If you can donate $50, that's awesome. We'll send you a hat. If you can donate $3,500, that would be amazing. And also, that's the FEC limit. The most you can give, the better it's going to be in the long run, because the earlier we can get some financial, some money to spend, the more events we can make, the more signs we can create, the more opportunities we'll have to go out there in the public. So again, volunteering is great. We definitely need volunteers, and we're going to need all your help down the road. In the meantime, right now, we need some dough to help this campaign rise. I guess you would need yeast to make the dough rise. You know what? There's some cool metaphor in there. I'll figure it out by tomorrow. But markkforcongress.com, markkforcongress.com.